Hello, Julia. How are you?
Hi, Karen. I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's really great to be with you. So I'm going to start off with the distinction on emotions and moods. And for a lot of people, they use that word interchangeably. From an ontological perspective, which you will have heard me speak a little bit about before, making the distinction between emotions and moods is important, and emotions are linked to events and happen in the moment. So they happen in relation to an event, whereas moods are longer lasting and less apparent to us. So they're often out of awareness, but they can be running the show. And so being able to discern and understand how our moods are influencing how we're observing the world is a very powerful ally for us in terms of the results that we get and how we're able to navigate life. Perhaps the other thing to say is, we can have moods from anything from a couple of hours to weeks, to months, to years, to decades. So when they're invisible and they're running the show, that has a huge impact on the quality of our lives. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Julia?
No, I just want to underscore the quality of life, because I think that to be human means to constantly seek to live well, to live an existence that matters. And I think moods are very, very big influences of that.
Yeah. Super. Well, let's have a look at, in addition to what you're saying, why moods matter. So one way of thinking about emotions and moods is that they are predispositions for action. In other words, the action that we take will be informed based on the mood or the emotion we find ourselves in. And when you and I were chatting earlier, Julia, we spoke about them as being spaces of possibility and also spaces of impossibility. And I really like that way of thinking about it, because it gives us a sense of what we can and can't do when we're in certain moods. And now I want to come back to, what do we mean by action? Action, when you think about action, what we mean is anything from the way we perceive something, to the way we think about something, to the way we speak, to the way we write, to the way we listen, to the way we make decisions, all the way through to physical action. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's a really big range of how it influences, how moods influence our life. And a way of thinking about it, you and I spoke about, there are no lenses, there are no filters. The world shows up to us based on our moods. And there's that quote by Anaïs Nin that you used, Julia, and if you could remind me.
Yeah, it's that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
Yeah.
So the quote was that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And in my interpretation, the mood space or spaces we're in enable that observation in particular ways or not.
Such a great point. And the last thing to say is that our moods are inescapable. So someone says, oh, I can manage my moods. Well, even that, managing our moods, is a mood. There would be a mood associated with that. And they're inescapable because they are biological processes. They cannot be separated from what is happening in our body. We're going to start to orientate now to this framework called a basic moods of life framework.
So I affectionately call this framework the 6-pack. So there's 6 moods, and we're going to go through them pretty much in pairs. And so the first mood is associated with an orientation that we are opposing that which we cannot change, or at least that which we feel we cannot change. And this mood we call the mood of resentment. And another way of saying it is we are permanently pissed off. And in this mood, we feel we run a story that we have not been treated fairly. And typically what characterizes this mood that we can start to listen to or tune into in language is that we're saying a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts. It should be this way, or it shouldn't be that way, which implies, it's not the way I want it to be. So invariably, this mood has us be kind of like subtly angry victims, because we feel we're at the mercy of that which we cannot change. And the mood tends to keep us stuck from moving forward. When we can come to a space inside of ourselves of accepting that which we can't change, we access the very, very powerful mood called acceptance, also known as the mood of peace. And so while the circumstances surrounding us may not have shifted, our internal relationship with those circumstances is different. And we begin to come into the present moment and are able to have more choice in how we respond. So the mood of acceptance allows us to be with what is, and we're able to be in the present and therefore more resourceful. And I always say that, the future isn't guaranteed. The present is the only time that we actually have now. So in this mood, we feel more empowered because we're clear about that which we can and cannot change or influence or control.
So the next two moods is links to our relationship to possibility. And when we are in a mood called resignation, we are opposing possibilities. So even though there is a possibility, we close down opportunities for ourselves and others. And this is what we consider to be the sneakiest of moods. And what we notice in this mood, so a way to tune into this mood is there's lots of yes, it could be possible, however, or but. And along with that, it's a mood that's characterized with lots of stories and excuses for why things can't be done. So if you think about if in a team, you're talking about a new direction and someone says, yes, but we've done it before. And oh no, there's no point in trying. Another way that this mood can show up is as a mood of arrogance. And the reason for that is because the stance that we take with the mood of arrogance is we already know, and there's nothing to learn, no one can teach us. And it's a mood that really has us cycling again and again and again. It's a bit like Groundhog Day, if you know the movie Groundhog Day. So every single day is the same. The only thing that changes is the date. So that's one orientation to possibility. The other one that we can look at is when we accept possibility. And this mood is a go for it kind of mood. We term it the mood of ambition. It's not about stepping over people to make progress. What it is it's about agency and choice and taking responsibility. So the kind of language that goes with it is things can be different around here, and I'm committed to playing a role and making a contribution. And I'll do what it takes over time and space to make that happen. So it's an I orientation, but it's not an I orientation and I'm so important. It's an I orientation as I want to make a difference.
Yeah. The next mood, or the last pair that we want to explore, is to do with an orientation to uncertainty. And we know from living in the 21st century, and we're not at the beginning of it, we're in it, is that what's very evident is that we're facing as a humanity and as a planet very fast, ongoing and relentless change. And that doesn't seem to be letting up in any way, shape or form. And things are becoming increasingly unpredictable and hard to predict. So the mood that comes about from this poor relationship with unpredictability and uncertainty, we give the name the mood of anxiety. And in anxiety, what we tend to do and think is we tend to catastrophize and imagine the worst case scenarios possible as if they are already happening. So we have a poor relationship with this unfolding future. And we also start to say to ourselves in a very subtle way that we do not have the capacity to protect ourselves or to look after ourselves in those circumstances. A very prevalent mood in the world today. We could say that the mood shift that is possible for us when we come into a different relationship with uncertainty or unpredictability is the mood of curiosity. So when we accept that things are uncertain, we are able to access this mood of wonder or curiosity. Those are two words for the same mood. Here, we start to regard the world as fascinating. We're fascinated with what is happening. We're happier to live in the questions and to allow answers or outcomes to unfold in their own time. We don't have an attachment to needing answers. So what from an action or behavioral perspective, this mood encourages us to explore, to experiment, to discover new possibilities without being attached to a very specific outcome. And so the mood is fantastic for innovation and learning. In fact, I would say it's impossible to learn and innovate without the mood of wonder or curiosity. Anything to add, Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Julia. What triggered for me is our colleague Irma. One of the things she says around anxiety is anxiety steals joy.
Yeah.
And if you think about wonder and you think about children, it brings joy.
Yes. Yeah. And there's something about wonder as well. And if you watch a child, it's sort of being almost losing a sense of self and being part of something bigger. And I think that mood also enables us to be connected to the interconnectedness between us all. Anxiety separates us more.
So
we feel very alone.
Lovely observation. Well, so that's a quick whip around worldwide tour in a few minutes. And you and I spoke about sharing a quick story about how this happens in life and how it's so transparent. And I was saying that I'm working with a client, and if you look at her, she certainly appears to live in a mood of ambition, and her work, she's very driven at work. And part of the work that we'd been doing was around how to create some balance in her life. And when she came on the call and we were chatting and I said, how are things going? She said, oh God, Karen, she said, I've been having 16-hour days. And we spoke on the Friday and from the Monday. And something just with this framework in the background came up for me. And I said to her, I said, are you resigned to your life? Which was really checking in about the mood of resignation. And immediately tears started to flow. Yeah, and that opened up a wonderful opportunity for us to start to have a conversation about what she was truly committed to and what were the moods she lived in and what were the moods she really wanted to live in for her life.
Yeah. And to me, Karen, just to, what stands out for me from that story is the idea that we can live in a background mood that may be related to a certain domain, like in her case, her professional domain, but actually maybe there's a foreground mood for that, but there's also a background mood, that sneakiness that you were talking about earlier in resignation, that's to do with the rest of her life. And so, sometimes these moods come from the background into the foreground and vice versa. But the point is, we're always in them.
Yeah,
we're always in them.
Exactly. I think the other thing is, we're sharing this framework and it can seem one-dimensional, but of course we're much more complex as human beings, and we can have contradictory moods.
Yeah.
And all of our moods are normal and natural. What counts is what it allows for us in terms of what we want for our lives, what it allows for in terms of our relationships, and what it allows for in terms of the quality of our life.
Amen. I think that, I just maybe one more thing to add. We could add, but that when we are able to start to observe the moods, because the thing is that we're often immersed in them and we don't, like a fish in water that doesn't know it's in water. So when we can actually observe them, we can begin to change them. And we begin to access a wider range of choice, so that we don't have to be the victims of our moods or even other people's moods. We can start to cultivate moods that support us in generating the results we want and that quality of life that we talked about.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things we haven't mentioned in linking to the cultivating moods is we can be born into moods of our family. And what this starts to enable is we don't have to stay there. We can start to have choice. We can cultivate through starting to understand more about our moods.
Yeah.
So it's been fantastic, both in the preparation, just the deepening, the ongoing deepening, and this conversation has really been liberating for me. And unless there's anything else you would like to add, I'm going to put up our information if you want to talk to that.
Yes, thanks, Karen. It's been great for me too. So we offer a variety of opportunities if you'd like to learn or know more. We are offering free online introductory sessions of about 90 minutes that are going to happen throughout next year, 2023. We also offer a 3-day workshop called the Ontological Coaching and Leadership in Action Workshop, and an 18-month program, which is a much deeper dive into this approach. If you'd like to contact us, please take note of our email addresses, and you could WhatsApp us as well. And if you'd like to learn more about our programs, there are 3 different websites you could visit. One is South African based, one's for Europe, and one is global. We really hope to hear from you soon.
Fantastic. Well, I think all that's left to say is enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to the next conversation.
Thank you, Karen. You too.